In this video, I'd like to discuss the claim that Muhammad is mentioned by name in the Bible. On your screen, you'll see the Hebrew text of Song of Songs 5:16. Now, there's a very popular Muslim polemic which claims that the word Muhammadim in that text is actually a reference to Muhammad, the founder of the Islamic religion. I'm actually very familiar with this polemic, as I myself, ironically, used to push it back in the late 90s. However, since then I've realized how silly the argument is. There's many videos on YouTube promoting this polemic, but one particularly flashy one that I found is on the Truth Will Prevail page, and it's titled The Absolute Truth About Muhammad in the Bible. To get an idea of the basic argument, let's look at some clips from this beautifully edited video, which even has footage of Ahmed Didat. Here we go.
Upon a very close scrutiny of the alleged references to Muhammad in the Bible as a prophet, they absolutely have no relation to the prophet of Muhammad, nor prophesy his coming.
Muhammad is not mentioned in the Old Testament. Muhammad is not mentioned anywhere from Genesis to Revelation.
Muhammad is God's true messenger. That's a joke.
In reading the English translation of Song of Songs 5:16, it finishes the description by saying, "He is altogether lovely," but what most people don't know is that the name of that man was given in the original Megillah. Here is verse 16, and how it is written in ancient Hebrew, before introducing the vowels, in the 8th century. From the Hebrew Bible, on scripturetext.com. Here is the word in question. This word is made of 4 letters.
Mem, Het, Mem, Dalet.
Now when reading the word as it is written in its original form, with no vowels, it can be read as Muhammad, which is the name of the Muslim prophet, or as Mamad with no A after the H. According to Ben Yehuda's Hebrew English Dictionary, it is correctly pronounced as Muhammad, not Mamad. So how we're going to know for sure if it's pronounced as Muhammad, the Muslim prophet, or as Mamad, a random Hebrew word? The only way is to give the verse to a rabbi, and say to him, "Please read." Here is the Song of Songs 5:16, and how it is read by a rabbi from a Hebrew Jewish site. Please notice, the im in Hebrew is a plural of respect.
Hiko mantakim vechullo Muhammadim ze dodi vezer'i benot Yerushalayim. Hiko mantakim vechullo Muhammad Muhammadim ze dodi vezer'i benot Yerushalayim.
You have no right. You have no right to translate names of people. Anybody. Your name should be retained. Mr. Black is Mr. Black, though he's white. You have no right to translate names of people. But they have been doing that. Muhammadim, they translated as altogether lovely. But the word Muhammad is there in the Hebrew language. The word Muhammad is there in the Hebrew language.
Now again, I find the editing in that video to be impressive, but the argument is still weak. To begin, note that the word is Muhammadim, which is Mahmad in the plural. The video tried to claim this was a quote-unquote plural of respect, but I've never seen any evidence that, that's actually part of the biblical Hebrew language. Whatever the case, to explain the plural, I would instead appeal to the preceding word, wechulo, which literally translates to "and all of him." So The reason the adjective is plural is because it's describing not one thing, but rather all of his parts. وَخُلُو مَحَمَدِيم. You know, all of him, all his parts are lovely or beautiful, etc. In short, there's no reason to believe this is a reference to Muhammad, rather it's simply an adjective describing the subject. But let's go deeper. Let's ignore this problem of the plural and focus instead on the validity of the argument aside from that. The polemicists are correct in noting that the Arabic name Muhammad is spelled exactly the same as the Hebrew adjective Mahmad. The Hebrew mem corresponds with the Arabic mim. The Hebrew chet corresponds with the Arabic ha. The second mem corresponds with the Arabic mim again, and the Hebrew dalet corresponds with the Arabic dal. There are, in fact, these two words are actually etymologically related. But to show the problem with this line of reasoning despite these facts, let's return to the Hebrew text of Songs 5:16. Note that right after Muhammadim, one finds the words Ze Dodi. The proper translation of this phrase is, this is my beloved, or this is my lover. But suppose we leave Dodi untranslated and render it, this is Dodi. Therefore, just as Muslims try to assert that the verse is referring to Muhammad, we can assert that it's actually referring to Dudi al-Fayed, the deceased lover of the late Princess Diana. And we can go down the same road. Note that the Arabic name Dudi is spelled exactly the same as the Hebrew word Dodi. The Hebrew dalet corresponds with the Arabic dal. The wa in each language correspond to one another. The dalet and the dal again appear, and the Hebrew yod corresponds to the Arabic ya. So I wonder now, are we starting to get an idea of how silly this approach is? But let's go even further. For a second, note that the current Pope is named Benedict XVI. That's his English name anyway. In Italian, he's called Benedetto. Now, with that in mind, let's turn to Luke 1:42, which has a person declaring to Mary, "Blessed is the fruit of thy womb." We all understand that as a reference to Jesus, but imagine yourself looking at that text in Italian. One popular Italian translation of the relevant phrase is "Benedetto è il frutto del tuo seno." Now, we could translate that, "Blessed is the fruit of thy womb," but we could also translate it, "Benedict is the fruit of thy womb." Another translation is "Benedetto è il frutto del tuo grembo," which means the same thing. And a very modern translation, one from the late 90s, is "Benedetto è il tuo bambino," which is "Blessed is your baby." Or, again, we could translate it as "Benedict is your baby." Now, imagine trying to argue that this verse, Luke 1:42 in Italian translations, is actually referring to the current Pope. It's kind of silly. Now, so to explain why this argument fails, let's look at the internal logic in it. The argument starts with the factual premise that the name Muhammad is spelled the same as the Hebrew adjective Mahmad. And then it jumps to the conclusion that this means that when the Bible employs Mahmad, it has to be referring to Muhammad, specifically Muhammad, the founder of Islam. Kind of silly. If you look at the basic structure of the argument, it starts from the premise, the proper name X is spelled the same as the adjective Y. Therefore, when a text employs adjective Y, it has to be referring to this person with the name X. Which person? Whatever person I want to associate it with. Clearly, the premise doesn't lead to the conclusion. The premise does not imply the conclusion. The conclusion does not logically follow from the premise. Therefore, the argument is actually logically invalid. So let's look at some examples, show how we could apply the same line of reasoning to the other examples I gave. Premise 1. The name Benedetto is spelled the same as the adjective Benedetto. Therefore, when the Bible says the fruit of Mary's womb is Benedetto, it's referring to the Pope. It's saying that the Pope is Mary's son. Or, another example, Dodi is spelled the same as the Hebrew Dodi. Therefore, when the Bible uses the Hebrew Dodi, it's referring to Dudi al-Fayed. Naturally, the argument is ridiculous. The logical structure of the argument fails. It's an invalid argument. Now, Muslim polemicists who push this ridiculous argument might try and claim that, Dudi al-Fayed or Benedict can't be being the ones who the text is referring to, that clearly it's referring to Muhammad. But why? Why is the argument, okay when it's referring to Muhammad, but ridiculous when it refers to these other gentlemen? The real answer is because they have an emotional investment in it being a reference to Muhammad. And thus we see that the argument falls flat. There is, in the end, no reason to believe that Songs 5:16 is somehow referring to the founder of Islam. I'm sorry. It was a beautiful video, but the argument falls flat.